What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? Noah Gray here, tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to Josh's channel and check out showmefootball.com for more.
What is up, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fann of showmefootball.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. He's Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report, and Trey Smith and the Kansas City Chiefs have finally agreed to a massive contract extension. We're going to break it all down right after this. Ladies and gentlemen of the Chiefs Kingdom, welcome back into another video on my channel. This evening, I am joined by my good friend, Michael D'Arcy of KC Sports Report for a little breaking news episode as the Kansas City Chiefs have finally extended right guard Trey Smith. Ian Rappaport reported earlier today that the Chiefs are finalizing a 4-year, $94 million extension with $70 million guaranteed to make him the highest paid guard in NFL history. Michael, we actually made a video on your channel not too long ago where we kind of gave our thoughts on where the Chiefs were on a Trey Smith extension. I can't even remember what you said, but I know that I said that
I was a no.
I didn't think they would come to an agreement before the deadline, but then we heard talks heating up over the past 48 hours. Hey, this thing might be close. You know, there were some people on Twitter that seemed to know what they were talking about, saying that this was close to getting done, close to that deadline. I just figured, you know, that at this point, the Chiefs were just going to make it a next offseason problem and that Trey Smith would play on the tag. But I'm not all that shocked that they did ultimately end up keeping him long-term because that was definitely highly likely. But Michael, before I say anything else, I definitely want to get your thoughts, what your reaction was when you saw that the Chiefs finally agreed to an extension with Trey Smith.
You know, I was kind of just like, there it is. You know, it's funny because after we made that video, I can't reveal my source or anything like that, but I was basically told that the Chiefs and Trey Smith were going to come to a deal by the deadline. And so I was like, okay, great. I can't believe that I went on the channel and told everybody that I don't think it's going to happen. And then, you know, literally 48 hours later, I had a much different, you know, I guess, idea of what was going to happen. But to see him get paid this type of money at first is like, whoa, they're paying him $23.5 million a year over the next 4 years. That's a lot of money. He's the highest paid guard in NFL history. But I think that this is going to be something that in 2 years, we look at this deal and say, you know what? The Chiefs got that one done early and it was cheaper over the duration because, you know, he would have been playing under the franchise tag, which is $23.4 million this season. And so the Chiefs essentially took the franchise tag, multiplied it by 4, and gave him some guaranteed money. But I guess there's less guaranteed money since you multiplied it by 4 instead of just him playing under the franchise tag for 4 years, which can't happen. But you know what I mean? Like, he ended up getting essentially the franchise tag for the next 4 seasons. And I do think that's going to be a good thing for this Chiefs offensive line. And after the Chiefs traded Joe Thuney, they had to get this done.
You know, naturally, yes, Trey Smith getting paid this amount of money is just going to reset the market, and it's going to make his deal look a lot better when we see what some of these other guards get over the next 3 to 4 years over the duration of Trey Smith's contract. That said, I've had strong thoughts this entire time on, you know, the Chiefs throwing this much money at the interior offensive line position. And my feelings haven't really changed. I'm not going to be a fanboy for the Kansas City Chiefs and Brett Veach. Not that I don't want to make it seem like I'm unhappy that the Chiefs extended Trey Smith. I'm glad that they at least resolved this. Let me say that first, actually. I'm glad that they came to a resolution on this situation before they played out the season on the tag, and then they tagged Trey Smith again next year, and then his franchise tag was on the books next year. I'm glad they figured something out now, today. But at the same time, I have to be honest and say, look, I'm not a huge fan of paying an interior offensive lineman this much money. I never have been. This is now the second time in which general manager Brett Veach has reset the guard market. He did it that first time with Joe Thuney, and like you said, Michael, it ended up looking like a pretty good contract towards the end, but that Joe Thuney contract also was one of the reasons why I think the Chiefs eventually were not able to keep a player like Tyreek Hill, and you kind of have to weigh, you know, how many more wins is it worth to keep a guy like Trey Smith instead of opting with the replacement level player who isn't making nearly as much as him? And that could be a whole nother conversation for another video. But really, my thoughts are I'm happy this got done in a way, but I also am very skeptical whether or not this was the right decision financially for the Chiefs to invest that much money in the interior offensive line once again. But I'll say this, Michael, it's key now that they hit on left tackle, and I'm hoping that, Jalen Moore or, the draft pick Josh Simmons is the guy, because if they are, and you can go cheap at left tackle over the next 3 to 4 years, then that'll make it seem a little bit less of a bad deal that you're paying this much money for the interior, if that hits the plan currently at left tackle.
When the hope is too that Joe Thuney contract works so well because he became, he was already an all-pro, but he continued at all-pro level. Trey Smith's never been an all-pro.
Yeah.
And the hope is that he continues to develop and progress, and one of these years he is an all-pro, because if the Chiefs get the level of Trey Smith that he has been the past couple of years, I'm not saying that he's been a bad player, but he's probably not worth highest guard in NFL history type of money.
Correct. Yeah.
We're assuming that he's going to take that next step. And if he does, again, I think we're going to like this contract in a couple of years.
Yeah. And that's a really good perspective on it. I think Joe Thuney was a guy they brought in. He was already a perennial all-pro, continued being an all-pro even after they paid him. Trey Smith, not at the level of Joe Thuney. Maybe he can get there. We say all the time, you pay a guy for what you think they're going to do, not because of what they were or what they are at that moment that they signed the contract. The Chiefs are banking on Trey Smith, even at this young age, still becoming a lot better. But that is another reason that I'm skeptical of the contract, is because Trey Smith, I think, is a top 10-ish interior offensive lineman, and they made him the no doubt highest paid player at the position in league history. And there are some advanced metrics that say Trey Smith's pass blocking needs some work. He had some low lights in the Super Bowl just this past year. So I don't want to downplay Trey Smith as a player and make it seem like he sucks now because he signed a big contract. Not trying to do that at all. But this is not a slam dunk to me, the way that a lot of other Chiefs fans probably think it is. But like I said, I'm definitely happy they came to a resolution. And I think, if I were a betting man, I would have bet that they would have signed to do a long-term extension. I just didn't think it would come before the deadline.
Well, Josh, I'll tell you what, they still got to pay Trent McDuffie. George Karlaftis, when's that going to happen? And, I was actually listening to 96.5 The Fan. They had Nate Taylor, who's now at ESPN. He was on, and he was basically like, the Chiefs should try to get this done before Sao Paulo. And that's not that far away. And so we could be watching, a Trent McDuffie deal get done soon. But I think that there is something to be said, like, the Chiefs can't just print money. And so by them doing this, they're making a statement. They clearly want to invest in that offensive line, and they've done just about everything to invest in that offense, and they need to see a result from that. And I think too many times we haven't seen the result of the investment on the offensive side, especially over the past couple of seasons.
And that's why, again, it's very important that the current plan at left tackle pans out for them, because, again, I'll be a lot less concerned about the amount of money that they're paying Trey Smith if this kind of money-saving option at left tackle, if you get Josh Simmons on that rookie contract and he's a fantastic player, okay, cool. You went cheap at left tackle while you paid a little bit more for your interior O-line than most teams are willing to pay. But if you pay all this money for the interior offensive line and the offensive line as a whole is not where it should be, I'm going to have some questions. The Chiefs have thrown a lot of assets at the offensive line. Now we need to see the whole plan come into fruition.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, kind of going back to the whole trading Joe Thuney thing, after they did that, they kind of had to extend Trey Smith. And I think that this is a perfect situation where the Chiefs wanted him, Trey Smith wanted to be here. And I think that while the dollar amount seems like a lot, the cap's going to go up, the market's going to get reset. Like at this point, Josh, I wouldn't be surprised if Trent McDuffie for about 2 hours is the highest paid corner in NFL history. Like, that's just the way that big time contracts go nowadays. Everybody wants to be the biggest and the best and the highest paid. And I think that, Josh, we could get to a point where these guards in a season or two are making like $26, $27 million a season.
Yeah, and I will say I did get a look at the structure on this contract. I believe it was from Albert Breer on Twitter, and he pointed out that the highest dollar amount that Trey Smith will make in a season will be this year, the first year of the new contract, $27 million. And I think it's very smart that you're getting kind of the big year that stands out of the way in a year where like you've already kind of done everything you needed to do this offseason. It's not like the Chiefs need the leftover money for anything else. And so that way, again, Trey Smith, if he was on the franchise tag next year, isn't holding up your free agency offseason plans.
Well, especially because the Chiefs have backloaded so many contracts that having it kind of the inverse now where you're paying most of it up front, who knows if he's going to play for the Chiefs in 2028. Now, I assume that he probably will because he's young, but I think that the Chiefs are probably going to have Trey Smith finish out this contract, and then they got the best years out of him. And unless he's just, an all-pro and someone that is not dealing with a ton of injuries, I think you could probably move on afterwards. But the Chiefs are viewing this as we're going to get the best 4 years of Trey Smith. Might as well get those.
Yep, and they paid the price for that, what it costs to keep a player of Trey Smith's level. And I mean, I agree with you once again, and then we'll go ahead and kind of wrap this up. But you're going to see guards now start to make more than Trey Smith. And then 3 to 4 years from now, we're going to look back and be like, Trey Smith's deal's not that bad. And I don't think it's a bad contract. I don't want to come off as saying that I think this is a bad contract. But from my team building perspective, if I were running the team, I wouldn't invest that much money in the interior offensive line. But the Chiefs, they value that. They value protecting Patrick Mahomes, and this is how they see fit. This is their plan, and we're just going to have to be happy with it.
And I'll tell you what, Josh, if the Chiefs don't solve the left tackle problem, we're going to be right back in the same spot in about two months. So that'll be fun.
But definitely, guys, let us know down in the comments what your thoughts are on the Chiefs finally extending Trey Smith to that huge 4-year contract. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Are you a fan? Definitely let us know down below. With all that being said, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com for more. Also follow me on Twitter at showmefb. And then before we sign off, Michael, where can the people find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. And I might have an announcement here in the next couple of weeks, but just for now, that's where you guys can find me.
There you guys have it, and Michael's stuff will all be down in the description as always. That's all we got for you guys in this one. We'll see you all in the next one, and as always, go Chiefs.